Well, hello everyone, welcome back to Final Fantasy XIV Story Mode and the conclusion of the Ivalice raid story. It's a rainy day in Kugane, but that's fine. We're going to be going inside an airship ever so soon anyway. Also, it's pretty here, even in the rain. I like it. Do you want to go inside? You're getting all wet. The worried look on Lena Murala's face suggests she bears grave tidings. Or not. Greetings and salutations, German. I suppose you're wondering whether or not the good Jenomis has finally determined where in the world our next adventure is to take us. I was wondering. Can we go inside? My clothes are getting wet. The good news is, he has. The bad news, however... Now, while it's not in my nature to be sensationalist, sensationalism is in my job description, so please bear with me when I tell you not all is right aboard the airship Lexentale. Something about Alma has me deeply worried. I would not trust this information in the hands of my publisher, let alone some sullen gate guard. Shall we continue our conversation on the Prima Vista, away from inquisitive ears? I think she's talking about you. You weren't listening, were you? You wouldn't do that. I take it from your silence that you wouldn't do that. Good. Glad to not hear it. Let me on this skyboat, please. Shall I prepare the shuttle for you, my lord? Yes. The question is, then, where exactly did Ramsa and his fellowship journey next? Ah, Derman. To what do we owe this unexpected visit? I'd not planned on summoning you for another several turns of the sun. That is a very dramatic way to say it, yes. I apologize if we've caused you any worry. I suppose one cannot allow a reporter in their midst and not expect her to report what she sees, though I did expect a tad more discretion from Miss Murala. Alma has, as of late, been experiencing difficulties with her health. Chirurgeons have been called upon to discern what exactly it is that ails her, but as far as they can tell, there's nothing physically wrong with my sister. The consensus is the rigors of an extended stay in a foreign land have taken the toll on her fragile heart. Derman, when did you... Alma! I'm fine, brother. It's obvious you're not. You must return to your chambers and rest. Forgive me. Perhaps we shall speak again once I regain my strength. Until then, please look after my father. Now then, where were we? Ah, yes, the matter of our next expedition. Ready to listen. As we discovered during our most recent foray into the Ester Sands, the Dalmascan capital of Rabanastre appears to lie upon the ruins of what can only be the royal city of Lasalia, ancient capital of the lost kingdom of Ivalice. Shortly after, we stumbled across remnants of the legendary clockwork city of Gog, cleverly repurposed into a lighthouse overlooking the Ritorana Cataract, remnants which now sit suspended above the fathomless chasm. Lasalia, Gog. What have they in common, you ask? I shall tell you. They both appear in my ancestors' account of the rise of Ivalice, the Durai papers. And with each new discovery, This forbidden chronicle is now proving Ivalician legend to be more fact than fairy tale. There's no denying the proof, and it is but a matter of time before scholars and historians from across the realm come to the same conclusions. But, as you are all aware, my aim has never been to simply prove the existence of Ivalice. No, I shall not rest until I've revealed the truth of young Ramses' role in King Dalita's ascension, and cleared my ancestor Oran Durai of the false accusations made against him by the Church. Should we not see to Alma first, though? Seems like we got time. Kagane's chirurgeons would have us believe she's in no immediate danger, as her illness is not one of the body but of the mind. To borrow their words, her spirit is in a state of unbalance and merely requires time to right itself. Alma will be fine as long as she remains in bed. The last thing she needs is any further excitement, especially at the paws of these meddlesome mole bats. Though I must admit, both Mont Blanc and his brother have proven more useful than I would have ever dared to imagine.
When it comes to usefulness, I'm first in the field. Or was it furriest in the field? Would you like to feel my fur, Koopa? And you wonder why Ramsa despises you so, brother. They do all the work, and all you do is jest, Koopa.
Ah, but you're mistaken, Hardy. I bear neither you nor your brother any ill will. Any further ill will, that is. If anything, I owe you my thanks for your recent contributions. He's being nice again. His thanks. Are you hearing what I'm hearing? What happened to the venom-spitting adder we all used to know and hate? Alma certainly seems pleased with the change, but forgive me for not buying into this all-too-convenient transformation. Simply showing the world that Ivalice actually existed will not validate the claims chronicled in the Durai papers. That is correct, Father. The key lies with Ramza Baelv. If we can find evidence of his hidden role in the story, it will prove Oren's testimony true and safeguard our family name from ridicule. Which is why I turned the focus of my research to Dalita's forgotten companion and his actions during the War of the Lions. It was only then I discovered something most intriguing, an underlying struggle with an unknown force, a force with the power to bring about calamitous ruin. Orosite. The twisted abominations we encountered in both Lysalia and Gug, the Lucavi, they're born of these unholy crystals. While nobles of the north and the south squabbled over Ivalice's crown, Ramsa silently sought to rid the world of a darker evil. Evil manifest from the deepest desires of men and women whose minds had fallen prey to the Orosite. And with each confrontation did Ramsa's fellowship grow smaller. Countless companions lost to a cause that would go unwritten, yet was far more important than any clash of armies. And so did they endure, until reaching their final destination, the Orban Monastery. Oh, I know this one! The Orban Monastery is where Princess Avilia was raised. There's a scene about it in the Zodiac Brave story. After Dalita emerged victorious in his final campaign, he married the princess to legitimize his claim to the throne of Ivalice. Ah, I see someone's been paying attention. But I don't understand. Why would Ramses' crusade against the Lucavi take him back there? According to the Durai papers, the sinister being who engendered the Orosite was said to have slumbered beneath the monastery. But who or what would have the means to create something so powerful? Ultima, the High Seraph. A seraph? What's a seraph? Seraphs are believed by some to be servants of the gods, divine beings whose only purpose is to carry out the will of their immortal masters. As to whether or not Ultima can claim this title, however, I cannot say. Just as there were those who chose to worship Ultima and her otherworldly might, there were equally as many who feared the Visitor and her deadly magics, oft referring to her as the Angel of Blood for the carnage left in her wake. This sounds like something I'm going to be dealing with in an hour or two.
Interesting. What if the spell Derman claims to have experienced in the Praetorium, coincidentally also called Ultima, was in fact an elegant interpretation of the very magics introduced to Hydaelyn by the High Seraph?
That's a neat connection to make.
But that would mean...
What would that mean?
I've spoken with several colleagues back in Charlian regarding their opinions on the ancient incantation, and while they yet have little to show for their research, they all agree on one thing. The manner in which Ultima ethereally manifests should not be possible. At least on Hydaelyn. So it would naturally make sense if we discovered that the Allegans learned the spell from a being not of this dimensional plane. As to exactly how they convinced the being to impart that knowledge onto them. Not of this plane? What manner of creature are we talking about here?
Oh, hello. Likely one similar to Omega. How long have you been listening from the shadows, my friend? Long enough. I'm here to deliver the item Mikoto requested.
Sid, there was no need for you to deliver it personally. A Moogle would have sufficed.
A Moogle? And trust that he won't tear open the package and show it to some random adventurer? No, this was far too important.
If you two do not mind, the principal is about to tell us how to find the Arbonne Monastery.
Would that I could.
You don't know? Then what have we been doing here?
At ease, Lady Murilla. The Durai papers speak of a cataract situated on the river Zarshel. Zarshel? It's probably Zarshel. Zarshela? I don't know. Several leagues southeast of Rabanastre. There supposedly lies the monastery. Zarshela is not a name you'll find on any modern Dalmascan map. Rivers, however, especially ones as large as the Zarshela is established to be, are rare in a nation more than half claimed by the sand. The river we seek can only be that which bisects Golmore on the Naxian border. And for that invaluable information, we owe thanks to our brothers Moogle. Their travels have made them veritable authorities on Dalmascan geography.
Wait, but earlier you claimed you didn't know the monastery's whereabouts. I'm confused.
Its location's not what concerns me, but perhaps the Moogles themselves should explain.
Why, certainly. That verdant valley of vines and vipers to where we must voyage next is home to the Viera, and therein lies our little problem. The one thing the Viera do not suffer is trespassers, not even lovable Moogles, Kupo. Our glabbers kept us hidden long enough to see the jungle was teeming with ruins, much like those we've discovered in Lasalia and Gog, but the Viera trackers eventually found us and took us before their elders. We barely escaped with our pobs, Kupo.
So that's why we're still here, talking instead of bound for the border. There are Viera who have spurned the strict code of their tribes, abandoning their people to come and live in the cities of Dalmasca. Finding and recruiting one to our cause might provide us with insight into how to reach the Arbonne Monastery ruins. Unfortunately, the nation's current turmoil has not made it easy to accomplish this task. We still require more time. Works for me, I guess. And before boarding the shuttle here, I was stopped by a Banga on the docks. He asked me if I knew a Derman Durrami and bid I deliver him a message. I told him he was welcome to accompany me to the Priva Vista so that he might deliver that message himself, but the man refused. Mikoto, I saw this device crafted to your exact specifications, but cannot guarantee that it'll function as intended, seeing as I had nary a subject to test it on.
Of course, Master Sid. If any trouble is met, then most likely it's my design that's to blame.
What's this now? Your confidence in my craftsmanship is flattering, but you sell yourself too short, my dear. Here's to your success. Good day. So, what'd he make you? Where'd you go? There you are. I guess I should talk to some of these others. Check in. There's no question that Ivalice once stood atop the lands we now call Dalmasca, but with the passage of time have remnants of those eras past faded beyond recognition. If only the great library of Rabanastre still stood. My knowledge is limited, but if there's aught you wish to ask... Oh my, goodness. That's so many things. Don't mind if I do. What was the relation between Ramsa and Delita? As I believe I've explained before, the hero Ramsa Baelv and the pauper become king Delita Hyral were the closest of companions throughout most of their adolescence. Ramsa was the youngest son of House Baelv, an old and respected bloodline of warriors. Delita was the son of farmers in service to the Baelvs. Normally one mightn't expect the paths of two with such different backgrounds to cross, but fate chose to intervene. When Delita's parents fall victim to a terrible plague, Ramsa's father takes the orphaned boy and his sister into his home and raises them as his own. Sensing greatness in young Delita, Barbaneth elects to enroll him in the Royal Military Academy with Ramsa. However, not but several moons before their graduation does great tragedy befall them both. Noble children from across the realm are being abducted by a radical faction of dissident knights and ransomed to their families. Amongst those kidnapped is Delita's only sister, Tietra, mistaken to be of high birth for her place at Barbaneth Belva's table. Or at least, so they thought. It turns out the whole affair is a plot set in motion by a petty noble by the name of Argath Thadolphus. Yes, the very course you encountered deep within the ruins of Lassalia. You see, Argath and Delita were classmates at the academy, yet the former despised the latter, jealous of the base-born upstart who was always first in his class from swordplay to letters. And so Argath approaches the renegade knights and tells them of Ramsa's sister, only instead of describing Alma's features, he gives them Tietra's, that they might kidnap his true rival's kin. And they do. However, when the commander overseeing the rescue efforts of these noble children learns that it is not Alma but Tietra they've taken, he abandons all attempts at peaceful exchange with the brigands, refusing to waste valuable resources on a mere commoner. Ramsa and Delita plead with the officer to reconsider, but the order to storm the knights' hideouts and burn it to the ground are carried out with cold precision. The mission is a success, and the dissidents, including Argath, are slain to a man. But so too is poor Tietra. You're really spoiling all of Final Fantasy Tactics, man, but I appreciate the recap. Having learned the true worth of his blood, Delita leaves both the academy and his friend Ramsa behind to forge a new path, one that would ultimately lead to war. 5 summers will pass before the two meet again. Well, what was the relation between Ramsa and Oren? According to my ancestors' writings, Tietra's passing did not only serve to shape Delita, but Ramsa as well. Ramsa was possessed of 2 older brothers, both who had built their reputations for themselves as fearless and cunning warriors worthy of the Baelv name. However, soon after the raid that sees Tietra slain, Ramsa learns of his brother's involvement in the affair. The shock upon realizing his own kin's disdain for the common man is too much to bear, and Ramsa abandons his duty as son of House Baelv, choosing instead to consign himself to a life of wayfaring. It is while serving a band of mercenaries that he meets Oren Durai. Oren, adoptive son of General Sidolphus Orlando, is tasked by his father to discover the identity of those truly behind the War of the Lions, though what he discovers will mark him for life. Orlando was long an enemy of House Baelv, but the general had always been a proponent of peace. On many an occasion did he attempt to stave the hands of conflict by providing resolution that would benefit both sides, only to find his efforts thwarted by a force unseen. Throughout all this, the Church maintained its neutrality, openly refusing to endorse either order. Yet this was little more than a facade. The truth was they silently wielded their influence over both sides, seeking to draw out the war that the armies might grow ever weaker. It is during this time the Church begins its search for the Zodiac Stones, or what we now know as Oricite.
Their aim is to gain support of the war-weary small folk by dangling the promise of peace delivered by legendary warriors descended from the heavens, the Zodiac Braves. Oren Durai suspects the plot might bring great harm to the realm, but lacks the proof he requires to implicate the church in any wrongdoing. When all hope is nearly lost, Oren encounters Ramsa, already branded a heretic by the church for his discovery of several of the clergy's inconvenient truths, and learns that together they might be able to make a difference, for Ramsa holds a shard of Auracite. Threatened by Ramsa's actions, but unable to successfully subdue the young man or his Auracite, the church turns their attentions to Sidolphus Orlando and condemns the general as they did Ramsa in a ploy to drive him from the kingdom. This betrayal by the church only serves to embolden Sidolphus, and it is not long before he joins Ramsa and his son in their efforts to prevent the Auracite's blight from spreading further. How did Ramsa use the You're just going to summarize the whole thing, huh? You know, I'm fine with it. It's been a while since I played it. I appreciate the recap. While Delita waged his war for all to see, Ramsa remained hidden, choosing to deal with the Lucavi from the shadows. When the tiny fellowship was not hunting the horrors spawned by the Holy Stones, they were hounded by knights and brigands set upon them by the church. Yet despite this, Ramsa oft found his thoughts returning to his old friend, Delita, now an intelligencer with the Order of the Southern Sky. Delita had also not forgotten about his childhood companion, learning of both Ramsa's troubles and the church's schemings soon after joining the Order. For those of you who, if you watched the Final Fantasy XVI playthrough that I did on the channel, you're probably hearing a lot of really familiar terms and, plot elements. Not the same story, but a lot of very familiar elements and components. I did say during that playthrough, 16 owes a lot to Tactics. Tactics was very clearly a heavy narrative influence on 16. He could not, however, come to Beowulf's aid. Harald had proven himself a capable warrior and a charismatic leader, and was using this momentum to silently orchestrate a play for Ivalice's throne. If he were to openly oppose the church, it would prove disastrous. Ramsa, though, had already been branded a heretic. Through Ramsa, Delita might freely raise his sword against the church without consequence to himself, as long as their allegiance remained unknown. Now, one might view this as the future king simply using his companion to see his own desires to fruition. Even Oren himself opines on the matter in his papers. However, both Delita and Ramsa were quick to recognize that as long as the blight engendered by the Auracite was allowed to spread unchecked, that true peace could never be realized. Their solution was ingenious. Delita took his place on the field of battle to bring an end to the War of the Lions, while Ramsa took to the shadows to excise the otherworldly cankers that befouled the realm from within. You're a very good storyteller, which makes sense. What was the Orbon Monastery? The Durai papers tell us that the Orbon Monastery overlooks a grand cataract on a river known as the Zarshel. The building was allegedly ancient in Oren's time, with no record as to exactly when or by whom it was constructed. We do know, however, that the building had deep ties with the Atkasha dynasty, rulers at the time of the War of the Lions, and was oft used by the royal family to house prisoners, before finally being converted into a place of worship, a tradition that seemingly continued even after the conversion. Oren writes that Princess Ovelia Atkasha, the last rightful heir to the Ivalician throne, was confined to the cloister for much of her young life, before her eventual marriage to Delita. Yet, though the Cenobites of Orbon were part of a contemplative order within the Church of Glabados, they remained oddly exempt from the High Confessor's authority. Now, you may ask, if Orbon was a monastery, then why was Ovelia, a girl, admitted? Well, it appears early scholars may have misinterpreted an important term. In ancient Ivalician, the word for both monastery and convent are the same. However, seeing as Orbon was inhabited not by monks but by nuns, it would have been better suited that the word had been rendered as abbey, which itself is more encompassing. That's a cute localization joke, saying they probably should have translated it as this, but the game's already out. What are you going to do? In addition to their daily prayer, these nuns crafted ales and wines from ingredients grown on their land, and sold them to desert townships that lacked ready access to potable water. While the Durai papers indicate the monastery, or abbey, as Ramsa's final destination before his disappearance, it does not state why his journey was to take him there. Considering that Oren actually accompanied Ramsa on his quest, it's hard to believe that the chronicler would not know, leading me to believe there was a reason for this omission, one that I believe will unlock this entire mystery. Neat. Well, at this point, in for a penny, right?
What's the Golmore jungle?
The Golmore jungle is an endless swath of pristine emeralds situated in the southeastern corner of Dalmasca on the Naxian border. The hot and humid climes of the region have given rise to a nigh impenetrable expanse of towering sentinels and noisome bogs in which all manner of flora and fauna is allowed to flourish without the interference of man. Our very own Mont Blanc, however, claims that on his short traipse through the region, he stumbled across numerous ruins of unknown origin. From what we've learned from our own research and expeditions, I'd surmise these sites are somehow connected to ancient Ivalice. While it is true that the Durai papers make no mention of a jungle the likes of Golmore, more than 1,000 summers have passed since my ancestor penned this chronicle. Any number of things could have given rise to a marked change in the environment, even one of your calamities, perhaps.
That's true.
And one cannot speak of Golmore without mention of its enigmatic inhabitants. As you know, the rainforest is also home to the Viera, self-proclaimed guardians of the wood, or the bunny girls and boys you see running around the game now. They did not exist in 14 at this time. This was the introduction of Viera into Final Fantasy XIV, just in this little side thing. Though those who claim that title count themselves fewer with each coming spring, as more and more of the Leporine abandon their ancestral homes for the comforts of the cities. Still, many Viera continue their adherence to a strict code that has governed their people since ere the age of Ivalice. None may enter their jungle, and none may leave. To the Viera, Golmore is a sacred ground, and they'll not suffer what they view as the desecration of their sovereign domain by outsiders. This is especially true for those who would dare hunt their lands. I would one day wish to see her ruins with mine own eyes, but without the consent of those who call the jungle home, I fear that day may never come. Golmore Jungle is a Final Fantasy XII place, if you didn't know. Who's the High Seraph? Very little's known of the High Seraph, other than that it was she who created the Aurosite and scattered its shards across Hydaelyn. As for if the entity be angel or demon, that depends on which fairy tale you choose to believe. Though, after witnessing the terror of the Lucavi firsthand, it's difficult to imagine that one truly pure of heart would design something that might give rise to such evil. That said, it appears the Aurosite itself contains no evil. The stones merely serve as an amplifier of sorts for the desires of those who come into their possession. If that desire is one swollen fat with rage, one of dominance or revenge, then it is made manifest as a Lucavi. Such was the case with Argath and Bagamnan. Conversely, if the wielder's intentions are just, then they are rewarded with what can only be described as miracles. Legend provides us with countless tales of the Zodiac Braves granting succor to those wounded, or even fallen in battle. Perhaps this is why history cannot decide on the alignment of the stone's creator. If the being truly hails from some other plane of existence, as Mikoto suggested, then we'd be fools to think she might be beholden to the same values we hold dear. Fair point. Thank you for all that. I'm gonna drink some water. That was much more than I bargained for when clicking on you. Both Mont Blanc and his brother Herdy have proved invaluable to our expedition. I owe them my thanks. And, I suppose, an apology. I admit, when they first arrived, I was wary of their ability to contribute to the cause. However, over the past moons, they have done their damnedest to prove me wrong. I used to believe that we Garleans were inherently better than, well, everyone else. I suppose a part of me still does. It was what I was raised to believe. It's what all Garlean children are. Only now have I begun to realize the fool I was. Our exile here has forced me to face the arrogance that has controlled me my whole life, and what I found was that I was simply frightened. Frightened of change, frightened of admitting I was weak. And so I lashed out, and I'm sorry that you, Mont Blanc, Wagi, and the others had to suffer. Well, thank you for that, and also for your brevity.
I have no issue with Rapsa's unexpected change of heart, just with how it actually came about. I fear it might be the Aurosite playing with his heart, Kupo. I sensed a surge of ether the precise moment he came in contact with the necklace, though that surge has since passed, Kupo.
You may be onto something. Something is obviously very wrong with poor Alma, and why her father doesn't seem to pay her a condition much mind is something we should all be wary of. That is also a good observation.
You won't believe this, but since our time together in the Clockwork City, Ramsa and I have grown inseparable. Why, I'd consider him a closer companion now than even my good brother Herdy. Just don't let Herdy know that, Kupo.
Your secret is safe with me, I guess. You know, I was going to check in with all of you,
You all seem great, but, I just talked a lot. Are you the one playing Delita? Kind of look like you are. Or maybe Orin? It's been a bit.
The body is but a vessel for the soul, a puppet which bends to the soul's something. And lo, the body is not eternal for... you must forgive me, Derman, I was lost in my work. Several of my patrons are expecting returns on their considerable investments, you see.
I see. I will leave you to your whatever that is. Mikoto, sorry for the wait.
I sense that you are interested in the package Sid delivered. I have every intention to apprise you of its contents, but first I believe we should speak of Alma's condition. Do you not find her illness all too timely? Jenomis and Ramsa would like to believe that her bouts of vertigo are not but a result of a mind fatigued, but the answer is clear. It's the aurosite that plagues her. Alma recently confided in me that she would hear her father speaking with the Odious well before even his first foray into Rabanastre. However, I do not think this is entirely true. Which is not to imply that Alma's trying to deceive us. Rather, I think she saw something that led her to believe her father was conversing with the aurosite. Moreover, I suspect it was the aurosite itself that granted her this vision. You recall my hypothesis on distinct frequency NRR-type harmonic vibrations and their tendency to promote ethereal amplification? Or when I mentioned that despite being in the principal's possession for an extended period, the Odious exhibited none of the imprinting present in the Duma? No?
It was a lot of words, to be fair.
The Odious has never resonated with Jenomis. It has always been his wife's pendant and its aurosite shard, the Virgo, that fueled his passion for Ivalice. No, the Odious is bound to Alma's deepest desires, whatever those may be. The only reasons I can fathom that Alma's not fallen victim to the aurosite's grasp is that her desires are not as strong as those we've witnessed in Argath or Bagamnon. That and the ethereal interference caused by other nearby shards. I've explained all this to Alma and recommended that she destroy the necklace, yet not only did she refuse, but she begged me to keep this revelation from her father. And so I did the only thing I could. I devised a means by which I might impede, or at least lessen, the effects of the Odious. This device, while still incomplete, will amplify the NRR wavelengths emitted by the Virgo. This should work to interfere with those emitted by the Odious, thereby shielding Alma from the brunt of their effect.
The city below is all abuzz with word of a Banga brigand loitering about the airship landing. Do you think it could be someone we know, Kupo?
Maybe I should go look into this. Ah, Bwargi, hello.
Apologies, Derman, but I needed to speak with you, and you alone.
Oh, don't mind me, Kupo. I'll just be floating over here in perfect earshot.
Why, what makes you think I won't lay you low right here, right now?
Because we're here to offer you a proposition, that's what. We need information on the Golmore jungle, and thought a man as well-traveled as you might be persuaded to provide some.
Golmore? You of all creatures should know that is Fiera land. What are you offering then?
Why, the opportunity to tell us what you know. Jenomis believes our next adventure lies beneath the jungle canopy, Kupo.
I should have expected as much. Very well. Derman, I came to ask if you would meet someone. Now it seems that someone may be able to assist Jenomis as well. Seeing as you and the principal did right by us before, I do not see a reason why I cannot take both of you.
Well, cool. And good. Shall we go?
Let me know when you're ready to depart for Rabanastre. We'll travel in our airship. The Prima Vista would draw too much unwanted attention.
Oh, well, okay. I'll board your ship instead. This is also quite nice.
Back to a life of brigandry in the clouds, are we?
Of course not. Not that it didn't cross our minds. But when faced with the decision of what to do next, we needed simply to remember the dying words of our leader. Gijuk, Rinok, and I decided to re-enlist as Dalmascan Fusiliers.
And the occupying Garleans actually said yes, Kupo?
Not exactly. We're now with the Resistance. You no doubt heard of the uprising in Dalmasca that followed the Doman liberation, and how it was crushed under the iron heel of the 4th Legion.
I remember hearing something about that, yes.
The Resistance leaders were captured, tortured, and publicly executed. Yet, much to the Empire's chagrin, the gruesome display only served to further rally the survivors. Remove 1 head, and 2 grow back in its place. Remove 2, and then there are 4. A person can die, but an ideal will live on. Now there exist several factions throughout Dalmasca. We belong to one known as Lentes Tears. And when we told our commanding officer of our recent crossing with you and yours, she simply insisted that we introduce you.
Me? But I wasn't even supposed to be here, Kupo.
Not you, Hairball. Him! Meet with the General and hear her proposal, Derman. If you are not interested, we shall return you to Kugane unharmed. You have our...
Curl got your tongue?
Rabanastre dead ahead, lads.
Mont Blanc, I'm not sure you're helpful on this excursion.
This way. We've many malms to cover before nightfall.
Seems to me like maybe we could have flown a little closer then. But okay. Well, who do we have here?
I've done as asked. I bring you the Liberator.
And here I thought he'd be taller.
This is definitely not a voice I can do.
I do it. A Viera.
I am Fran, proud daughter of Dalmasca and general of Lentes Tears. And yes, Mukul, I am a Viera. Are you surprised?
Why, yes, in fact, I am. Her kind are all supposed to be living amongst the trees, having shunned contact with the outer world, Kupo. There are supposedly a few who have left their homes, but I most certainly did not expect to see one here in this sewer.
Indeed. This Banga claims you seek Orban. Does he speak true? Those ruins lie deep within the Golmore jungle, a place most sacred to my sisters. They would take great offense were you to defile it with your presence. What's more, Bwagi tells me you travel with Garleans, openly aiding those who would see our nation burn. How can we place our trust in one who would do such?
Well, Jenomis and his family defected long ago, and my blade has tasted the blood of too many Garleans to count. That seems, I mean... Don't have to... It's not a contest, Derman. But if it is, I'd be winning.
A Garlean is a Garlean. Their pathetic attempt at absolution only proves their past guilt.
You misunderstand. Kind Jenomis does not approve of the Emperor's warmongering. He wants to help Dalmasca and its impoverished masses, Kupo.
And what would a Moogle know about my people? Does your blood run Dalmascan red? We could cut you open and find out.
General, there's no need for threats.
You are right, Bwagi. Let us then parley.
Parley?
Parley. First, the Resistance requires men and women from Doma and the Eorzean Alliance to join us in ridding Dalmasca of its Imperial invaders. Your past deeds have made you well known to the leaders of both. They will listen to you, or if not, they will listen to these scions to which you claim allegiance. Second, the Resistance requires gold. Gold to strengthen our forces from within. Your allies are in bed with the East Aldenard Trading Company, which continues its dealing with Garlemald even as you raise your sword against them, profiting from the Empire's rampant aggression. As targets of that aggression, I believe my people are entitled to a portion of those profits. Grant me these simple things, and I shall personally guide you safely to the ruins of Orbon.
And what of the Lexentales?
See me to victory, and I'll take the Emperor himself. Those are my conditions. What say you?
Well, I'll deliver your request to the Scions, but I can't promise any more than that.
Tell them my demands, but know the fate of your expedition hangs on how well you do so.
I'd say we have our work cut out for us, Kupo.
Bwagi, you and the Fusiliers are to accompany the Liberator. I expect a detailed report on how my demands are received.
Yes, General.
Not that I expect them to be taken seriously. You are a fool to trust them, Princess.
For those unfamiliar, Fran is a character right out of Final Fantasy XII, one of your playable characters. And her voice actress has a wonderful, I want to say, Icelandic accent that is extremely cool, and I cannot do justice to, so apologies.
What an adventure, Kupo. Just think, by tomorrow we could all be the newest members of the Dalmascan Resistance. Not that I'm ready to give up my place on the Prima Vista just yet.
Yeah, you've barely started this other new dream of yours, Mont Blanc. Pace yourself. All right, come on. Mont Blanc is eager to return to the Prima Vista and report on your findings.
Hurry, hurry. If I don't tell someone of our adventure quick, I'll positively burst, Kupo.
All right. Back on the airship, then. So, we've news.
Where have you been? In Rabanastre? With Mont Blanc? Why didn't you tell me? How am I supposed to report on something if I'm not there to see it?
Sorry, didn't think of it. There is no question that Ivalice once stood atop the lands we now call Dalmasca, but with it, I think you said the same thing before, and I don't need to read that again. Thank you.
This woman asks much of us. The Viera have ever been wary of outsiders. For centuries, their many tribes have remained hidden in the jungles, content with their self-imposed solitude. Each tribe has its own strict code and will meet swift punishment to any who would defy these laws. As such, many a Viera will spend her entire life bound to the territory of her ancestors, both unwilling and unable to venture beyond its borders. And while the tribes are wholly independent, they have agreed to uphold a single standard: shun all contact with the outside world unless it is to protect the jungle.
That said, with every generation, there are those Viera who long for a life beyond the verdant sea of trees and abandon their tribes to start a new life in the kingdom's cities. My guess is that this Fren is one such individual.
Who also happens to be the only individual we know who can guide us to the monastery, Kupo.
It seems Derman's sword arm won't be enough to see us through this predicament. He'll need to don the right mantle of a diplomat if we're to convince the Allies and the East Aldenard Trading Company to grant us aid. What could go wrong? I do usually entrust the talking to Alphino. If I can. Or one of the other world leaders I hang out with. You know, I'm sure I'll be fine. How hard could it be? Hello. Yes, I know you said not to call unless it was urgent, but this is urgent. All right, not exactly, but my superiors have come to a decision on your request, and I thought you might want to hear what they had to say. Oh, and let me preempt any request for immediate disclosure with a reminder that the information is much too sensitive to discuss over Link Pearl. Meet me at the Ruby Bazaar post-haste, and I shall duly apprise you of their judgment. Well then, Derman, what are we waiting for? You all sit tight. Coming? I've read about how you united the whole of Eorzea under a single standard and convinced the Holy See to end a 1,000-year conflict. Compared to that, asking for a few soldiers and a coffer or 3 of gil should be a piece of Rollenberry cake. I suppose we should inform Bwagi down at Kugane Landing of our progress. You mentioned he was to keep an eye on us. That is true. Let's go check in with him first. Here you are. I've informed Bwagi of our situation. We're ready to make for the Ruby Bazaar when you are. Fantastic.
So you've an answer from East Aldenard already? Impressive. It would seem the Lady Fran has underestimated your influence amongst the realm's players. I assume you've no
Okay, that's not helpful. Apologies for that, everybody. Happens sometimes. Every now and then, I will just get some sort of random error like that where the game crashes, and I've never ever figured out why that happens. It does tend to be very rare, and the few times it does happen, it tends to be for a little stretch, and then it just stops. I don't know what the problem is. Hopefully it won't be an issue any further. Apologies for the interruption, though. Where were we?
So, you've an answer for East Aldenard already. Impressive. It would seem the Lady Fran has underestimated your influence among the realm's players. I assume you've no objections to me joining you then.
Right, okay. Out we go, if you could open the door, please. Thank you. Ah, there you are. Just waiting outside? Okay. Hancock awaits us in the bazaar. Shall we, Derman? Yes, we shall. Let's go in. A lovely lady and, Bunga. And here I was expecting you would be alone, Derman. But excuse my manners. I am Hancock, representative of the East Aldenard Trading Company, assigned to oversee her assets here in Kugane. It is a pleasure to meet you. Yay, friends. And I'm Yugiri. We apologize for making you come all this way. Not that it's far from the landing to... Bwagi, was it? I serve Lord Hian, rightful ruler of Doma. I've come bearing my lord's reply to your entreaty. And I'm Tataru Taru of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn.
I am only here seeing as no one else could be bothered. Well, that and to bear a message from the leaders of the Eorzean Alliance.
Thank you both for coming. I am Boagi, formerly of the Dalmascan Royal Fusiliers. I now claim allegiance to Lentes Tiers, a resistance group seeking to accomplish what you have in Doma and Alamigo. What tidings have you brought us?
Allow me to begin, then. While the East Aldenard Trading Company sympathizes with your plight, we are not in a position to grant you the funding you seek. As you are aware, the East Aldenard Trading Company prides itself in its neutrality, be it in matters political or personal. And what of our relationship with the Eorzean Alliance? Yes. What I meant to say was, here in Hingashi, the East Aldenard Trading Company prides itself in its neutrality, be it in matters political and... You must understand our position. Simply supplying coin to any one group would make it appear that we somehow favor that group over another. Seeing as we conduct business openly and fairly with everyone, doing such would be sending the wrong message and ultimately harm profits. Yes. And by selling to both sides, you maximize profits while good men and women perish. How convenient. I mean, she's right. We are a business, milady. We do what we must to survive. That does not mean, however, we are blind to the needs of our customers or our allies, which is why we support the Eorzean Alliance and their noble efforts to safeguard their realm's freedom through a mutually beneficial arrangement. If it were my choice, I'd provide your little resistance with all the funding it needs, but as my good friend Derman knows all too well, it is not my choice. What about from our side of things, then? Well, now that Hancock's thoroughly lowered your spirits, you won't be as crestfallen when I inform you the Eorzean Alliance will also be unable to provide any assistance.
And let me guess, you did everything in your power to try and convince the leaders of each city-state, only to watch as they politely declined our proposal, claiming an unfortunate lack of intelligence or resources.
Wait, how did you... Lord Hien sends his greetings to you and yours, and under normal circumstances would welcome allies still suffering under the imperial yoke. However, word has it that the latest attempt at reclaiming your kingdom ended in failure, resulting in the loss of countless lives, including many of the Resistance's leaders.
You're not mistaken. Our army is not what it once was. Those remaining have been forced to take refuge deep beneath the streets of Ramanastar.
The 4th Legion has already defeated you once. Lacking unity and leadership, the current Resistance will not survive another tilt against the Empire's disciplined ranks. If Doma's to join hands with Dalmasca as an ally, you must first prove to us that you'll stand as one.
Doma as a full-fledged ally would serve far better to strengthening our cause than a few temporary soldiers.
Yet, even if we were able to wrest Dalmasca from the Empire's grasp, without unity amongst your people, the resulting chaos could prove even more perilous to the kingdom.
You understand much of our situation. And based on that understanding, you would refuse your aid to Lentes Tiers. Am I correct?
Do not mistake me. Lord Hien's refusal is but a message to help you plan your next step.
You have a wise master. He understands that without proper planning, driving one enemy from your midst simply creates room for the next. Lady Fran will no doubt be pleased to hear that your response was exactly what she expected.
You knew this whole time that your demands would be rejected, yet still you let this farce play out?
You have my apologies, but this was all necessary to prove an important point to our leader. Lady Fran needed to show the princess just exactly what she was getting herself into, and your honesty today will serve us better than any hollow promise. Thank you.
Wait! What about the Golmore jungle? Ah, dang. Can you believe this? We're right back to where we started. Principal Jenomis will not be pleased.
That is unfortunate. Well, I'll start heading back toward the Prima Vista. Actually, now seems like a good time to split this episode as well, I think. Given how much story there is in the middle stretch here, and we still got the actual raid to do, and then the end. So, let's go ahead and do all of that next time. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time for the actual conclusion. The actual conclusion of the Ivalice raid stories. I hope you're enjoying. Take care till then. Goodbye.